bubble world. Should be able to use more than one filter. But anyways, I'm going to go to the black and white issue. Since we are talking about black and white things, we're talking about justice. So this is what happens to me. I'll see something and I'll think, I have something to say about that. And I've talked about Bill Cosby before, and my feelings have changed about Bill Cosby. And not my general concept of justice, but in how it should be applied in his case. I mean, what is the preferred thing we should do with this guy? You know, it almost seems illegal to have compassion for a human being. Certainly what he did was potentially wrong. You know, he is the accused. He's not actually been convicted. But even if someone is acquitted, it doesn't necessarily mean they did it or didn't do it. It just means there was enough evidence to prove it. The problem with justice is it's a moral statement. Justice doesn't exist. It's a myth. And so I can't sit here and say, well, this is for justice, because I don't believe in justice. I know that you can't get justice. I mean, you can't undo the event that happened in the past. That would take a time machine. So all we're talking about is there's several things you can try to do. You can try to prevent crimes. You can find criminals and make sure they don't have access to commit crimes. And you can use criminals as an example. So this would be a deterrent to crime. But society's need in this whole justice sphere is to prevent crime, right? So everything else is emotion, or it is what we have as what we have for justice, are the concepts of justice. And I see people just throw it out. That guy is a piece of garbage. That guy's this. That guy's right. But if you're looking at a society's perspective, you're looking at a health society, and you want it to be as functional, you want to put your resources to get most bang for your buck, which is really the economic, cold-hearted way of looking at what am I getting for my money when I throw someone in jail or throw them through this legal process. I mean, what are we paying for here? What we're paying for is an enormous expense. It pays for lawyers' salaries, and is this how you want to come to justice? Spend thousands of hours, probably hundreds of thousands of hours on this particular case, not really being productive. No one's ever, it's kind of like society comes to a standstill, and it doesn't, because there's a lot of things going on simultaneously, but all the effort that goes into this, what are we getting out of it as society? We're getting some news stories. I mean, I always look at, well, what are we gaining from this behavior? Is there a better way? So when someone says, well, they should be punished and thrown in jail, I'm like, but what advantage is it to have that happen? It's neither here nor there to me and to society. What I need, or what I want, is prevention. I want safe streets. I want to have the best society I can have, and to have the resources of this society geared towards where do we want to go, and how, when we see an injustice even in the justice system, we should say, well, can we make it better? Is there a better way? Because dragging this out for years and years does no one any good. Is there a way to subvert this process through mediation? There are other tools that we can consider using there, and we should, as a society, come to an understanding of, well, what are our goals? I mean, what is punishment going to accomplish? What is it just sucking this person dry of all his financial resources? It's neither here nor there. But we're spending money to prosecute him because we have to, because these illegal transactions. to a certain extent, you would say, well, if it's two behemoths fighting each other, two people that have deep pockets, then it's not really the state that is failing. But I mean, we're not losing out necessarily in some certain circumstances. I'd have to look specifically at the economics of each instance. But still, you're creating a legal system that is incredibly toxic, really. I mean, it's not accomplishing a lot for society. It may make you feel good, well, he got his just desserts, but that punitive instinct we have is very counterproductive, and I really discourage it as a general modus operandi. If you really want a better society, you should be concerned about using the big guns and concerned about you hitting hard. The conversation and the dialectic is really where we want to get to, and goals, and saying, well, how are we going to resolve our differences? How are we going to prevent these complications from occurring? And really understanding the root causes of social problems instead of wanting to blame people for things that may be beyond their control. I mean, we don't really ask hard questions. You bring up the issue of rape, and the next thing you know, you're called a rape apologist, and it's like, well, but don't you want to prevent rape? I mean, don't you want to understand the root causes? Human behavior. Shouldn't we, dive into these without blaming people and then labeling it toxic masculinity? And I look at Bill Cosby and I say, I wish that we could have a conversation with him where he wasn't on the defensive, that he could open up about his darker angels, and that we could understand the predatory nature. Now, I'm not sure how much we could actually learn from him specifically, but the other thing we're doing is we're sort of in a weird way saying that you can't survive rape, or if you're sexually assaulted, that it's such an offense that it's going to ruin your life. What can we do to help survivors to reestablish their empowerment, to put that experience behind them so it isn't such a life-altering event? So we're not talking about this in constructive terms. We're talking about this in this moralistic, I'm going to punish this guy for all these wrong things he did. But what does it do to help society? And is this an effective deterrent? Is this really restorative for him? So, whenever I see these cases, I'm just like, oh, I hate listening to just the self-righteous moralization. Wherever it's like, you're just feeding this myth of justice. Justice doesn't exist. The best we can hope for is getting some sense of normalcy, creating a protective environment. I want a fair society, absolutely. And I think there needs to be some consequences for behaviors. But if society can't recognize that they're sort of eating themselves up with this concept of justice, it's like a feeding frenzy. It just isn't rational in terms of a resource commitment. And you can't really even talk about it because there's all kinds of labels that then get applied to you for talking about it. And that just was kind of irritating me, so I wanted to sort of do a quick my position on it. So if I ever say anything about him specifically being guilty or not guilty, to me it doesn't really matter, and I just want to make a statement about it. At this point, it's what can we do to learn from that experience, and when we look at the justice system, what is the most effective way of deterring? What is the most effective way of restoring a survivor's confidence? and not making, so what can we learn about surviving, you know? And I think that's the most frustrating thing for me, is that we're not talking about how we can make things better. We're using justice as a reason to make things worse. So, anyways, that's my 10-minute spiel on the myth of justice and the Bill Cosby case. But so I put it out there. Oh, I need to finish.